Call to order the Lowell City Council regular meeting Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, 7:03. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Harris.
Here.
Councilor Stratus.
Present.
Councilor Weathers. Here. Councilor Murray.
Okay, everyone present. Stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the agenda before us. Understand we want to add Lowell water system improvement as a discussion item. Under other items, any other changes or amendments?
One change, Mr. Mayor, in
Okay.
your minutes, I noticed on page 5 of the minutes,
Okay,
under item 9, I did not include the vote count. So number 9, resolution 826, that was approved. 4 yes, 0 no. I would request the council approving those minutes as amended
okay.
to reflect that change.
Okay. Thank you for catching that. I was looking at the other, you didn't do that. Next up is the consent agenda, including regular meeting for February 6th and the check register on page 9 for January 2024. Okay. We have a motion to approve as amended. Okay, by Jenny and Gail. All those in favor of consent agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay, public comments. Hold it. Okay, thank you. Good to see. Council comments. Okay, I guess the next thing up is page 15, the city administrator's report. Moving right along.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I provided a thorough report earlier this month. For tonight, I wanted to report on my recommended priorities, at least for the rest of the fiscal year. We have a lot on our plate, a lot of critical items, and my recommendation is to concentrate our time and effort on these high priority items. I'll briefly go over those items. The first is the Emergency Community Water Assistant Grant through USDA. This is for a $1 million maximum grant, non-matching requirement, to retrofit our water treatment plant. This would build an expanded sedimentation basin and an airburst retrofit for our water intake to respond to the Lookout Point Dam drawdown. If we do nothing else as a city, we should provide clean drinking water and protecting the environment by treating our wastewater. The dam drawdown has significantly affected our ability to provide clean drinking water. And for that reason, I believe this project should be top of the list. Second is completing the PLC and SCADA project. Council's already aware of this project. Our PLC failed, we're on a loaner system. We received a grant to do the entire PLC SCADA build out for our water master plan. So this should be number 2, I believe. Number 3, completing our wastewater master plan and the SDC upgrades associated with that. We have a 90% draft that we'll be presenting to you in March. This has been a 2-year project. I believe this should be a priority because the master plan and the SDCs are going to affect our long-term capital plan, and the SDCs are going to affect our financial projections. All of that's going to flow into the rate study that I'd like for us to do. So logically, I believe we should have these in place before we move on to a rate study.
Yes, go ahead.
So the 90% draft that you've sent us already, that you're gonna present, will there be another version, or is that gonna be the version that's presented? Or this is where I get confused about when we get these reports ahead of time and they're in draft, and so I think it's coming again, and then it's a long one. So will we be looking at the one we've already received?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So my hope in March, on March 5th, is the city engineer will review the plan with you. And I'd like to have the council to have an opportunity to provide any input before we have the final draft done. And if we need to have a further meeting for you to review the draft with your input, that's okay too.
There won't be any changes to that one.
Correct,
Correct. That's what I need. Thank you.
absolutely. Following that is preparing the 24-25 budget. This month, all of next month, I'm gonna be focusing almost all of my time on preparing the budget. And my hope is to get it done early this year so that there's plenty of time for the budget committee to have some quality discussions and deliberations on the budget. Next, starting the e-permitting program. At the same time I'm working on the budget, I need to pivot to the e-permitting program. The state is requiring us to have this up and running on January 1st. Northwest Code Pros has some templates that we can use for our ordinances and our fee schedule. I'm still going to have to go through that and harmonize it with our ordinances and our process and obtain legal review. We need to have those completed, the ordinances and the fee schedule, because that's going to flow into the e-permitting process. Building Codes Division, which you approved the contract with them, has us in their queue for around March or April, so I'm behind the curve on that. The next is planning for a water treatment plant expansion. You had a discussion with the city engineer in January about the limitations to our system for new growth as well as for current demand, especially during peak months. I've received a summary of financing options today from Business Oregon. We had a one-stop meeting with them last week. Once we get through the budget and a few other things, I'll be presenting that to you for some discussions and direction on how you want to go with that. The water treatment plant projects are 3 to 4 years project, and if we're going to meet demand, I feel like we need to start planning right now for that project. The next is managing our current development projects. I have 5 land use applications in the queue. About once a month, I have at least one developer who's interested in something. We also have things such as hillside development permits. All of these require a substantial dedication of time to make sure we're protecting the city's interests, the public's interests, and we're ensuring developers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So when I'm not doing all these other projects, that's where I'm directing my attention. And then lastly, cybersecurity. LCOG is leading the charge on that. This is to obtain grant funding through the Oregon Emergency Management Department. With all of the bad actors out there, all of the hundreds of phishing and junk email I receive every month, I believe this is important to ensure continuity of operations. Also, with the planned offsite data storage, if there's ever a catastrophic wildfire in the community, that would give us the ability to restart our business operations if something were to happen. So those are the priorities that I recommend. I also have a list of things not to focus on at this time. This is from your priority resolution. First is the e-storage program. The second is the sale of the surplus city properties. Our plan was, I'm talking about the old city hall and the Rolling Rock Park. Our plan was to sell those, pay out the loan for the new city hall and library. I believe for now, we should just factor in the loan payment for that and turn towards those 2 projects as we get further along in the year. Parks grants and upgrades, those aren't critical right now. In the meantime, I believe the Parks Committee should work on completing the Paul Fisher Park Shade Tree Memorial. In late summer, we can reevaluate our workload and start working on the caboose repairs using the Fall Creek Education Foundation grants. Lastly, personnel policy. I had some discussions with LCOG's Personnel Institute. They can help us out with a lot of this. For now, I recommend just plugging those professional service costs into the 24-25 budget after July 1, fitting that in as time allows. So this is what I'm recommending, at least through the fiscal year. I'm open to thoughts and suggestions from the council. If you feel like we need to have a work session, review this in more detail, I'm open to that too.
Thoughts? Yes, go Jimmy.
I'm happy to see that the personnel policy is still on your radar for the new year. I think it's important, especially with what happened this year, So I'm glad that it's still cooking in there, and that you're gonna come back to it.
Certainly.
Looks like a busy schedule, so we're gonna put much more in there. Besides normal daily stuff that's, gonna try to sidetrack me. Any other thoughts, questions, anybody on this, his report? Okay, then we have, page 18 is Public Works. Back.
Good evening, everybody. Public Works report for last month. Streets and parks, new thermostat was placed in the heater on the caboose. Noticed there was unusually high demand on electricity there, as Sam pointed out, so did some investigation and seemed to be that it was something in the caboose. Got J&K out there, looked at it, looked like the heater wasn't turned off, so just staying on. Got a new thermostat put in it Friday, checked it over the weekend, checked it Monday, and it seems to be working fine. So I'll keep an eye on it and make sure that's the root cause. Both park restrooms remain open and issue free, so that's very good news. You know, minus the normal janitorial, we haven't really had any issues there, so. Still doing what we discussed, you know, opening them and closing them each day, so. Water treatment plant treatment plant operations are getting closer to normal for this time of year. We have increased the speed of the plant by 50% to our normal wintertime running rate of 145 gallons per minute. We are getting good settling and pretty good run times on the filters. We're still currently feeding additional chemicals to aid in the settling of turbidity and the organics that are currently present in the lake. Still some residual left in there from the dam drawdown, and occasionally we're still getting, you know, a little bit of sand and silt and stuff like that. So I think for the most part, we're over the worst of it and hopefully coming into some much cleaner lake conditions moving into the spring. Wastewater treatment plant collections, Monday, staff repaired a block sewer main on North Alder. For the first time in my career here, this was performed in-house by staff with no assistance from outside. As a matter of fact, I was actually absent when this happened. One of the staff members was able to unclog it and get things going on their own. So kudos to them and keep this in mind for the future. This seems to happen about every 3 years in that line. It's a known issue. So other things, public works staff are working on the budget, as Jeremy stated. A lot involved in it this year. So, and on Friday, 2/16, the city administrator, myself, and a team from Civil West participated in the one-stop meeting regarding the water treatment plant master plan upgrades. Jeremy touched briefly on this. First time I've been a part of one that big, I would say. Looks like some pretty good things are in the works and should definitely be able to get some projects funded here. So, any questions?
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, everybody.
Next up is the library. Page 19.
Thank you. Would you like to review the library report, or would you like me just to read off what you have here?
The thing that's not in the library report, because it's not this last month, this week is the 1st year anniversary of the opening of the library. And I'm incredibly proud of how things are going. Other than that, the report stands as it is.
Thank you. Questions for her? Then we have the evaluation form by the people, volunteers. It's interesting to read. Then we have the December and January police logs for Oak Ridge.
I filled out my ride-along papers, so I'll be doing that on March 2nd, I think. So let's see it.
Midnight to 2 in the morning, or a decent hour.
Yeah, these days.
Good for you.
Don't be as interesting as when I read it. I hope.
Probably not.
We can get a picture of it for the bridge,
Oh,
put it in the back seat.
I'm not riding in the back seat, but.
I hope not.
With Parker said.
Okay, we're up to page 24, new business. Motion to authorize a part-time temporary librarian. Would you introduce that, Mr. Khan?
All right, in December, the council approved a $10,309 grant with the Oregon Heritage Grant Program from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. This was for the digital archiving program. $9,000 of that is allocated to personnel services. Originally, we intended to procure those services through an independent contract arrangement. However, we've reviewed the state's regulations on independent contractors. And in my professional opinion, it would be more appropriate to classify this as a part-time temporary employee. Since this would be to add a new employee, I'm requesting the council's authorization to do so. This would be a part-time position, about 10 hours of a week. It would also be temporary, going through about May 25. We already have a temporary seasonal position at level 8 on the pay scale. Step 1 is at 16 per hour. Step 3 is at 17.14 per hour. I'm recommending to hire at most up to step 3, and we will adjust the hours and the wage so that we can stay as close as possible within that $9,000, considering FICA and other withholdings.
Do they have already somebody in mind for this, or
No,
they just
we'll
starting to search?
advertise for this.
I know they have a lot of volunteers that's doing a lot of work, so that have an interest in the library already, so there's got to be some people that among that group would like to, I'd like to think folk help run this little part of the screen and count it all in.
If I may, this is actually a paraprofessional position. We need somebody who understands controlled vocabulary, so that each of these items that if you search the internet for Lowell, 99% of what you're going to find is Lowell, Massachusetts. We want to make sure that they know they're looking at Lowell, Oregon. There are other specialized language that institutional archives use, and we need somebody who's got, while I could train someone to do that, it would take a significant amount of my time to do that training. So by hiring someone who has had at least a course or two, or has worked in an institution that requires the knowledge of that kind of information. Unfortunately, none of my volunteers have that skill level at this point.
I was gonna ask that question. I figured it would take some special skills. So Peggy, can we get somebody with special skills at $17 an hour?
I'm thinking it's a grad student. And I know that both the Folk Life Center at the University of Oregon and the archives at the university, or the Oregon State University, both have grad students who would be qualified to do this. There are also nationally library recent grads or students who would be qualified to do this.
Yes, Jimmy.
Well, that was my question, and I hope if this search isn't successful at this pay rate, we can go back and maybe limit the hours, but up the pay.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little worried that if this job is not 100% remote, that pay might prohibit some of those national grad students who I think would be really interested. It's a competitive field to get into academic libraries, so any opportunity to get work experience is valuable. But if we do require occasional travel to this library, I think that's going to really limit, especially at that pay.
Yeah,
I'll
If
just
I-
share that's the rate I pay my undergrads to work in our library.
I would, when I originally wrote the grant, I was thinking of this as an independent contractor, and it was closer to $20 an hour. I am hoping that we can find somebody, and if necessary, I will do the training to make it happen. And I'm willing to limit the hours. I know how to do it. And there are, among our volunteers, I can think of at least 2 people that I could train to do this with supervision.
and I don't suppose there's any other grants we could get to add to this. That's, I'm sure.
Oh, that's the next thing on the agenda.
Okay, well, anyway, let's go for it and we'll see what happens and then we'll drop back and hunt at something else if we need to. But I just knew special skills were probably needed here and that means, it's gonna be a little harder to find.
Well, did you expect to find me?
Oh, I don't mean to be negative, Peggy. I think it'll, I just am recognizing, and respecting the need, so that's all.
Yeah.
I think great. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize a part-time temporary library metadata intern position and to approve the library metadata intern job description.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jimmy, second by Gail. Motion to authorize a part-time temporary library metadata intern position and to approve the library metadata intern job description. Further discussion?
That includes the wages as presented, the temporary,
That's right.
we did say part-time temporary, does that include that, or we?
Oh, we're talking about 17, 14 an hour, or are we including any? This motion doesn't include any salary, so.
I mean, don't we delegate that to?
Correct. I would agree with Councilor Murray. I have the authority to hire within our budget constraints. I'm asking for the council's approval tonight just to create the position.
Okay, okay.
Anything else? Okay, if not, all those in favor of motion to authorize a part-time temporary library metadata intern position and to approve the library metadata intern job description. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And then on page 27, we have part 2.
Take it away, library director.
So while I was putting together that original grant, a huge piece of the feedback I got was, oh, but you've got to ask so-and-so about such and such. There are still so many people alive, including some of you, who knew Lee Wetlow, who were around when the Blackberry Jam got started, people who know the stories behind the paperwork that, yes, the first grant is going to let us put in all the paperwork into our digital archive. This second grant that I'm looking for will help us capture the human interest stories, the things people actually know off the top of their heads, but have never written down. The challenge here is that while I know there's a whole lot that goes into doing an oral history, I've never been involved in an oral history project. And so to make this happen, I'm going to need a consultant. The person who is responsible for the oral history and archives at Oregon State has been talking to me about how we would go about this and is really excited about the possibility of being a consultant who will actually direct this program, who will teach our volunteers how to do it, who has advised me on what equipment we need. I think this piece will take the story of Lowell and its surrounding areas from something of academic interest to something that the person on the street is interested in. Speaking of Lee Wetlow, the Oregon Black Pioneers group is really excited for us to do this. They have heard the name, they vaguely know the story, but they would love to have a resource that they can also link to that says, here's this Black family that gave the land on which the Lowell schools stand, who was the grandmother of the town. And I think this would greatly enhance what we're doing. I also know from the state library that they can't write us a letter of support, but are also extremely interested in making this happen. They can't write us the letter because they're the granting institution.
Questions?
Peggy, you continue to do amazing work, and I don't know how you find the time for all this. I'm really excited about this, and I think these two letters, especially the one from Zachary Stocks, are glowing praise for this program, and I really hope this is successful.
Because this is a federal grant, I have also solicited a letter from our local representative to Congress. And I'm very hopeful that I will get something from her as well. I've had Maine's such a smaller state. I've had a lot of luck getting federal congressional people to write letters in support, and that does count.
You don't want to work. Any other? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the library director to apply for a Library Services and Technology Act with the State Library of Oregon in the amount of $12,083 to procure goods and services to collect the oral histories in audio and video format.
Second.
Gail, second by Jim. We have a motion to authorize the library director to apply for a Library Services and Technology Act with the State Library of Oregon in the amount of $12,083 to procure goods and services to collect oral histories in audio and video format. This place has a lot of history. Over the deal over here, back around. It's just like I say, the people that new people that were involved in all this history, you know, they're going by the wayside. So good to get it, put it in a format that future people can look at. So I think it's a good idea. Anything else? All those in favor of motion to authorize the city library director, or the library director, to apply for a Library Services and Technology Act with the State Library of Oregon in the amount of $12,083 to procure goods and services to collect oral histories in audio and video format. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, for the work.
Good luck, Peggy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peggy. Have a good night.
Okay, we're down to other business. Mr. Connell, why don't we talk a little bit about the Lowell water system improvement?
I'd like to get the council's input tonight on if there to be a special meeting prior to your March 5th meeting to approve a work order with the automation group to get started on the PLC SCADA upgrade. It's about it's a $306,000 project. I believe it would be appropriate to have your vote of approval before I authorize them to start spending that amount. So, is there any interest in scheduling a 5-10 minute meeting? We can have it over Zoom.
Before March 5th.
Anybody have any days or times that don't work?
Will we do it at the evening?
It doesn't matter as long as I can get three of you together.
Oh,
Could we do it right before or right after the event on the 29th?
Sure. On the 29th, that's at 6. We could do maybe 5:30, 5:45. 5:45, okay.
yeah, that works. And that one is, that's an information session on Zoom. Is that right?
The information session will be in Zoom and in person.
Okay. Where is it?
Here.
Here.
So you're planning on this 5-minute meeting then would be in person, not on Zoom, so we wouldn't be trying to log on from home and then racing down here, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Good catch.
Yeah.
I may or may not be. Hopefully not.
Yeah. Yeah, for good reason.
So where would you be for this? Would you be at your office or would you be?
No, since special meeting would coincide with the public information session, we would just plan on everything occurring in this.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that public information session, that isn't a gavel type meeting or anything like that. You just come in and walk around and they'll look at all the pictures and stuff or.
We could just hold a meeting in Lon's office.
Oh, I don't, you know, any place.
Besides that, we're talking
That's
about
fine. I just
5:35,
want
so
to,
that's
the
before.
logistics of it, are we gonna be meeting over at your place and then coming over here? Or you want, with other people milling around and stuff? That was my only thought.
I'm open to ideas, but I believe it would be simple enough for the council to gavel in just a quick special meeting in here.
I got 2 meetings on the floor.
I was gonna say, if we're doing it at 5:35, that's.
It's not like it's secret, so we can just be in the corner, it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's fine.
And we said
That was my minimal question.
5:45.
I think I can make 35.
I had 35, 45. You send the time and thing and I'll be there. How about that?
Sounds good.
You can eat it before then, whistle. Anything else by anybody? How's the public doing? They're still breathing. Okay, I like that. Keep breathing. Yeah. Okay, if not, we'll surprise ourselves and we'll adjourn at 7:37.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Maybe.
See you, Matt. Oh.